Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of Robert Crimo III. Some of you may heard, sadly, there was a mass shooting in Highland Park, Chicago. It's a suburb near, it's on the outskirts of Chicago. And somebody, Robert Crimo, went on the top of the building, and a building, and shot a number of people. There's at least 6 dead, and there's like at least 20, maybe or maybe six. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's at least a dozen people seriously wounded. It may be close to 20. You may want to confer that on the internet. It's just another terrible tragedy that has taken place, and sadly, these mass shootings seem to be like the norm in the United States lately. And prayerfully, these things will dissipate sooner than later. I don't know if it's going to go away and be eradicated anytime soon. But I'm going to talk about some natal placements and transits in Robert Crimo's chart that may have been tied in to this. And thing is, Robert Crimo, and my source is it's listed on a number of sites. His birth date, September 20th, 2000, year 2000. 21 years old right now. Will be 22 on September 20th, and again September 20th. I'm sorry, September 20th this year. He will turn 22 years old. The two sources: FBI.gov and IMDb.com, and I'm sure there's more sources out there that would confirm that. But that is the birthday I have, September 20th, 2000. So I had to improvise once again and do a solar/sunrise chart in which I put the sun at the spot as the ascendant. And it's thing about first I want to talk about, the sun-moon combination is an interesting one. It's a sun in Virgo, of course, and moon in Gemini. Likely, I don't know if his moon would be in Cancer if he was born at the tail end of the day, but this is based on the solar sunrise time. It puts the moon at 20 degrees Gemini, so his moon is likely in that mercurial sign of Gemini. And even though the sun in Virgo, moon in Gemini, the two signs are mutable signs, they have certain commonality, but based on the solar sunrise time, there is a square aspect made between them. And the sign, when you have the sun squaring the moon, it can cause certain turbulent, or I should say contentious situations with others. And it might, but what it is you have the sun in Virgo, which is really about being proper, scrupulous, punctual. And the sun in Virgo is also about really being very industrious and hardworking. And I'm not saying Gemini isn't that way, but Gemini sometimes will live vicariously, I would say, through others as opposed to actually doing the work. You have the sun in Virgo with the basic character again being very punctual and reliable, and the moon, Gemini energy on a subconscious level. Moon in Gemini, doesn't want to be pinned down and may not be able to be committed to being at that certain place at a certain time. So you have this energy that's strongly conflicting with each other. And he also, according to a video on CNN, stated that he was wearing a female disguise. He was impersonating a woman in order to conceal his actual identity. And it's interesting, the moon in Gemini can have that subconscious need to be somebody different. He also had the rap title, and I forgot what it was exactly. Something awake, something with awake in it, and we want to confirm that on the internet. So he had another name that he went by, and that's not unusual for the moon in Gemini. Again, it could be a subconscious need to have another identity, be more than one person. If I'm not mistaken, the singer Tina Turner has her moon in Gemini, and she's done I think she went under some kind of a pseudonym or some other name as well. And The thing about this energy, and I want to say as well, when you look at these, his chart, and there's no water in the chart. And I'm not saying, as far as, I don't know his ascendant. I'm suspicious his ascendant might be Gemini, though, or maybe Scorpio. I looked at, he has very lengthy features, especially super exceptionally long, thin nose that looks pointed, and, having what appears to be at least somewhat lengthy features in general. That could be Gemini rising, or I'm thinking it might be Scorpio, because he looks like he has kind of that, that piercing, penetrating look, the gaze. It's one, I would feel fairly certain it's either Gemini or Scorpio, though his ascendant, one way or the other. It's something we may never know, and that's of course just speculation on my part. But some other things I wanted to talk about, in his natal chart, he does have. It's interesting. He has the Jupiter in Gemini opposing his Pluto. And the significance in that can be considering Pluto is about coercion and manipulation, Jupiter is about philosophy. It tells me he may have tried to maybe coerce others into his beliefs, his way of thinking. Jupiter and Gemini might have a belief system that can be connected with things that are superficial, like outward appearances. And he also has Pluto conjoin his Chiron. And the solar sunrise chart falls in the third house of rational thinking. And Pluto in the third by itself can give very obsessive type of thinking. He also has Scorpio on the cusp of the third house in that solar sunrise chart. So again, that could indicate very obsessive, fixated thinking. And when you have Pluto conjunct Chiron, I think sadly, maybe in his case, the fact he did murder people, if someone was to become a murderer, it would really result in greater suffering in wounds. And I believe he's charged with like 7 counts of I think it's first degree murder, and that's another thing, not to be redundant, but you need to confirm that on the internet or whatever. But I think it's 7 counts of first degree murder. The fact it's in Sagittarius, it tells me it might be over a warped like belief system or philosophy. It was something done very recklessly. I don't know if he's Sagittarius is connected, with other cultures, foreigners. I don't know if he had any animosity toward anybody that was of a different culture or race. The thing about this is that looking at, I'm trying to see, just looking to see what other important aspects he may have had. Now Pluto in his chart, he also has Pluto square Mars, and by itself that could be difficulty in controlling one's anger. The fact he has Mars in Virgo, it's really, tells me there may have been some anger, that was connected, maybe with, just people, world in general, not being infallible, not living up to his particular expectations, not living up to that level of perfection. And he also has, you have that square, which of course could be very bad, again, for controlling anger. And I'd say anger could be very destructive. And another thing, I'm going to see what other, again, I talked about him not having any water in his chart a little bit. I'm going to elaborate and expound on that a little more. It tells me that it was harder probably for him to express empathy, compassion, emotions, and feelings more so than most people. Now, he doesn't have any planets in water, and the ascendant, which of course is the same sign as the sun in this case, being a solar sunrise chart Virgo, and his midheaven is in Gemini, of course, a non-water sign. He does have the North Node in Cancer, but unfortunately, when he did this, the North Node you're generally not going to fulfill until around age 35 or so. And he may not have been really manifesting a lot of that energy at the time. And hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, and at this time as well, there was a transit I thought was interesting. A transit Pluto in cold Cal's very premeditative Capricorn, planet connected with death and murder, was not making any wasn't making any major adverse aspects to any points in his chart. So this was basically this might have played a role, sadly, in him being able to carry out, this murderous energy, this nefarious act on his part at this time. And again, Pluto being Capricorn, Capricorn is sign very strongly connected with planning, premeditation, and it was done again, it's in a very cold, calculated, and very callous manner. And he also, too, based on the solar sunrise time, his moon conjuncts Jupiter in Gemini. I think it's interesting because I've talked about Jupiter before. The planet, of course, is very benign, benevolent, but it's also paradoxical. It could have a tendency to enlarge and expand. Now, in his case, sadly, it might have enlarged and expanded, very high-strung reactions, excitable emotions, and also ones that are very, being in Gemini, varied, manifold expressions of feelings. Moon in Gemini could be known to be emotionally versatile, but it's something, looking at his chart as well, he has Saturn in Gemini as well. So even though it's generational, that could indicate there may have been, some difficulties at time in articulating his thoughts. He might have felt, even if he had certain, intellectual ability and ability to assimilate information, he might have had some insecurities regarding, himself intellectually, even if it wasn't true. He might have just been imagined, but that could be, something that that might have caused, certain anger in him. Possibly, he does have that squaring his natal Mars. It can be, and again, that Saturn Gemini can manifest at times in some, insecurity in, in your, what you might be, in terms of your intellectual ability to articulate ideas or understand concepts. But the thing is, he had at least one grand air trine in his chart. And that can be very auspicious configuration for intellectual ability. He had it seemed like, I saw one of his or maybe there's a couple of his videos they had on YouTube, and he seemed to have be able to he had very good way with words, very good diction. He talked very, at super accelerated speed in the videos. He talked very fast, and I'm not, here to, to laud and praise him and try to give him accolades or recognition. But the thing, honestly, is that he had certain, musical talent. He had ability to communicate, and it's a shame that he had to just throw it all away. And people always talk about precursors to things, or we saw something like this possibly coming. We had some idea or conception that this is going to happen, but the thing is, even if somebody had those notions, nothing was actually obviously done about it to preempt this. I think it's not always easy to see if somebody's going to go out there and do something as nefarious as this person did. Now, he did have, Robert Crimo did have a video up, and it looked kind of ominous. It was one at the end where it showed him standing by an American flag, and he had this, like some kind of light on him, kept flashing on and off, and something tells me he was trying to convey a message. He may have been trying to give a clue as to what he was going to do, like a harbinger of things to come. But the thing is, who would have thought he'd actually go and do something dastardly like this and heinous, and shoot all these people. And again, it's just a terrible thing that had transpired with this person. And people talk about, why don't you get, people we get psychological help. But the problem too is, that's not always as easy as people think it is, because the people obviously have to be willing to help himself. I don't know if he had any issues with his family, if there was any kind of, maybe there was any kind of separation from the mother and father, or what was going on with that. And I know that the moon in Gemini by itself can have a mercurial home life, and sometimes the family connection may be superficial. I have my natal moon is in Gemini, so I can relate to him if that's what he was experiencing. The thing is, I think a lot of that, the possible opposition from Pluto to the moon in Gemini, depending on what time he was born, and the possible square from the sun in Virgo to the moon in Gemini certainly is not, didn't help matters in terms of bringing out, positive qualities of his moon in Gemini. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I wanted to get at in terms of this chart. Well, based on the solar sunrise timing, also has the ruler of the one of the rulers of the third house, Mars, in the 12th house. Sometimes that could be an indicator of possible mental illness. Mars in the 12th, could be an anger issue, like an intermittent explosive disorder, as an example. He also had, trying to see what else. The ruler of the, based on the solar sunrise chart, the ruler of the 12th house, which is the house of mental illness, falls in the first house. So that could be an indicator of being able to see there may have been some mental illness on a first impression, that he had some kind of mental disorder on a first impression. Now at this time as well, or near the time of this event, transit moon in Virgo is not far from his Mars, natal Mars. So that's right there, that could indicate very acrimonious, angry emotions, and again, not maybe things not living up to his expectations, not being infallible or perfect. And this is and it's also the fact that being in Virgo, and the fact that Mars is connected with firearms. Moon is the public, so you can do the math. This was a time where it's where maybe this transit played a role in him getting this public recognition, sadly notoriety, for doing something volatile, doing something with firearms. It's something that was, in being in Virgo, something meticulously planned, very well. And anyway, a thing that I may not have said at the beginning of the video, and I'm sorry if I didn't say it. I want to give my prayers and condolences go out to the close friends and families of all the people, the ones that are deceased because of this event, and ones that are seriously injured. And pray they're all, the people that are deceased are in a better place right now. And my heart does go out to those people. That could have happened to anybody. I think one of the people that was shot was an elderly gentleman. And it's ironic, because my understanding is he was reluctant to go. He didn't even want to go to the event, but he wound up going anyway. And he tragically got shot as a result of it, and passed away. So anyway, people, again, now that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.